This is Paul Nobles from eatperform.com. I am sitting here with April Blackford. April, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everybody.
So, April, as many of you know, is the forum administrator, and so if you haven't been in the forums, you should definitely uh, go there as quickly as possible because that's where all the really cool stuff is happening. All the cool kids hang out there. Um, But no, really, if you're just getting started with Eat to Perform, people will set your macros for you. Pretty much any question that you would have had probably has been answered a million times over, and so it's a great place to be. And if you haven't seen it, it's a really great resource. So, April, how are things going for you? Any? I actually missed last week's webinar. I'm
No,
assuming that
that
went
was
good
actually
with
the
you.
first. That was the first webinar in history that I did not wear a tank top for.
Oh, really?
Yes,
No
because
guns out.
yeah,
The sun must the
I had to
sun
go.
must have not been out that day.
No, I was in the mountains, so I had a jacket on. So
Oh, nice. Yeah, I saw pictures of that actually. So, we don't have any questions at this point, so I'll talk a little bit about my weekend, and it was really interesting because, well, one, I've been sick, and so kind of getting over that sickness was kind of interesting, but also I was a featured speaker for this seminar that talked to CrossFit affiliates. And my role was to talk about selling virtually or online sales, which obviously Eat to Perform, we're pretty good at that stuff. And it was really, really cool to be able to talk to all the gym owners and kind of run through um, their specific scenarios and try to help them kind of build what I think is all of our goals, which is to build like this dream scenarios for our customers. Like even in the case of Eat to Perform, when we first started off, it certainly didn't look like webinars like it looks now, and four books and the science lab with 20 moderators. You started much more humbly, and so I sort of kind of gave these guys, you have to sort of dream big to like accomplish really cool things. And it seemed to be pretty well received. I have to say, I didn't do a great job on my presentation just because I don't speak live very often, and I was sort of in my head about something that somebody said to me, so I wanted to stay on point, and so I tried just like reading off the slides, and that was just a debacle. Um, but it was really cool. It's always fun to get out to things like that. Like if you ever get a chance to go to the CrossFit Games, or if you ever get a chance to go to a regional, um, do it. It is so nice to be around other like-minded people that have great ideas, and so it's definitely something that I like to do and will be doing more often. And you know, talking to these gym owners, one thing that I realized is they don't know a lot of the stuff I know. And I thought, kind of, wow, I'll talk about some things that are sort of simple, and then I started to realize, like, whoa, you guys don't know anything, you know. And I'm sure in terms of like owning a gym, I don't know anything. So it was really cool. I mean, you've had the opportunity to talk at gyms, and um, I mean, the one thing that the constant feedback that I got was, you know, we need a nutrition program. We need a nutrition program. It's a really sorely missing piece for a lot of gyms. But also, one of the things that was sort of interesting as we talked to a lot of gym owners is, CrossFit when you were 3, 4 years ago, pretty much anyone that walked in the door was like ready to go beast mode. You know what I mean? And they were fired up, to do like these long wads and all these things that were sort of hard to do, right? Um, Nowadays, I think, for gyms to survive, they have to have more broad programming. maybe a little bit of long endurance, maybe a little bit more weight training, maybe some yoga and things of that nature. And I think what you guys as consumers will see is that your gyms are going to have to get a lot better. Otherwise, the gyms down the street are going to get better. So one of the two is going to happen. And I think just talking to these gym owners and listening to their dreams, like one of the guys actually talked about putting a kitchen in his gym. And I think that's a phenomenal idea. I would love to be part of something like that. I think that would be a really cool thing for people, because think about it. If you could go to the gym on Sunday and prep most of your food, or take classes, because how many people don't know the basics of what oils to put their food in and things of that nature, and you can do it in a real life setting. So I think that that's kind of cool.
Surprisingly, a lot of people don't know the basics of properly weighing and measuring your food. Do you
Yes.
weigh it, raw? Do you weigh it cooked? How do you add the entry? Just basic things like that. And I think that a kitchen in a box, I think, is a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I mean, like I almost wanted to say to the guy, do you need a sponsor? Because that's an idea I'd like to see happen. You know. Um, but there's other ways to do that too, right? You could all meet at the gym on Sundays, put up some TVs, watch some games, grill out for a little bit, make some vegetables, maybe 4 or 5 people make like a stew type of thing, or chilies or soups, so you have some prepared stuff, and then maybe you grill some chickens and meats and stuff like that. I think the biggest problems for people is just that they don't have that level of preparation, and they default to convenience. And honestly, I think for a lot of people, when they go to that convenience part, they actually undereat as a result. How many times do you eat something bad, right? And so you subconsciously don't eat as much through the rest of the day, when you'd probably be better off actually eating more. Because if you ate, let's say you ate 3 donuts, would the best thing be to eat less the rest of the day, or eat more protein, or eat more fibrous vegetables? Well, I think it would be obvious you should do the other, but I don't think that's what a lot of people do. I think they go, well, this is just kind of one of those days, and then by the time it's 7 o'clock at night, they're starving, and whatever bad option is in the house, that's what they're eating. What are your thoughts on that, April?
I completely agree. I totally agree. Normally, whenever I eat out, I try to track it, somewhat. This, last weekend, whenever I went out of town, I had to eat out more often than I would have preferred, because I don't really care to eat out a lot, because basically the food industry, they like to add sodium and sugar and stuff to food just to make it taste better in general,
Yeah.
and sometimes what you're eating is not what you think you're eating.
I,
To
I
be
love, I love how you're like, restaurants are trying to make food taste better. It's so weird.
Well,
You
have
know?
you ever noticed you go to a restaurant and you may order, say, a grilled chicken salad, or grilled chicken and a baked sweet potato? That grilled chicken breast is just way too juicy.
Yeah.
Not, because you cook a chicken breast at home, even if you cook it perfectly, it's not going to be juicy like that unless you soak it in the sugar salt solution,
Yeah.
basically. But the surprising thing was, basically I would default by, I still kept my carb levels up pretty high, but I would default to, baked sweet potato and a sirloin steak, or, whatever, that type of thing. And I added the food into my Fitness Pal, and I went back and I looked, and my sodium levels were like 6,000 milligrams a day. And that's just basically, a baked potato and a piece of protein, and steamed vegetables. It's just crazy how, you know, times like that can actually, of course, the sodium caused you to be inflamed. And, of course, I was puffy for a couple of days after I had the sausage fingers. And most people would think, oh, I gained 5 pounds of fat, because I ate out a couple of times, type of thing, So I think sometimes it can kind of set people back mentally when, in reality, you need to look at the big
When they
picture.
see the scale going up, but it's really more water retention related to the salt and things of that nature.
Exactly, exactly.
Especially if you eat moderate sodium, which I think most of us probably do. Um, I know, one end for me, and we actually have a few questions lined up, so we're going to get to that really quickly, is I've been sick, and I think uh, it's not often that I'm sick, so it's actually one of those things that people talk to us a lot about, but I haven't experienced it personally. And so one of the things that we often suggest when people are sick is like don't diet, don't overly restrict food. I mean, don't force it down, if you're not feeling it. Um, but the scale is dramatically low for me right now, and I've actually been eating a fair amount because my body is trying to heal itself, And so I can't even imagine what it would be like if you were sick, and you were trying to eat. I mean, I'm probably eating 1,000 more calories a day right now, and my scale is down. You imagine what it'd be like if you had like thoughts in your head that were sort of screwing with you and you weren't feeding yourself adequately, and then for a lot of people they want that scale to go down so badly, right, that they see it as a plus, and actually I think it's probably a big minus. When I saw like the scale was down a pound and a half this morning, I definitely tried to get in more food, to try and get back to where I normally sit. And I think ultimately that's what will heal me. That'll be one of the things that heal me the best, along with the antibiotics. For about 3 weeks, I tried to ride it out, but eventually I just had to go to the doctor. So let's go ahead and take a question here. Mike's saying, would milk work for post-workout carbs and protein? What are your thoughts on that, April? I mean, obviously, the one caveat would be if you're intolerant, don't drink it. So obviously we're having a discussion for people that are tolerant of milk. So what are your thoughts on milk?
I actually think that chocolate milk is a very good post-workout source. There is a very good carb to protein ratio there. I think you normally need to get the lower fat or the reduced fat varieties, but it will fit your macros perfectly for post-workout if you can do milk.
Yeah, it would be one of the instances. I'm not a huge low-fat milk guy. It would be one of the instances where I would agree with that. Where you would want probably no fat in your milk, because what fat does, the two things that blunt insulin, and insulin sort of got a bad rap, and so I'll run into that. I'll talk about that a little bit. But what you want is actually insulin to be activated. So what you want is as little fat and as little fiber as possible to kind of get your muscles refilled as quickly as possible, and then insulin goes away, and then we start to get back into using fats for energy, right? Is it like a switch? No, it's more like a kind of a gradual type thing that happens over time. But the better you can be there. So for instance, if you drank full fat chocolate milk in that instance, what you're essentially doing is drawing out the uptake for longer and longer and longer. Now that doesn't mean that you might not ultimately get there, but what we're talking about is some level of optimal to where we can kind of be a little bit more focused on replenishing glycogen, but then also getting back to fat burning mode quicker. So that would be our thoughts. If you have any follow-ups, Mike, but yeah, it's a pretty good question. I'm intolerant of milk, and April is as well. So we're not great sources for people that use it.
The organic True Moo chocolate milk is the way to go. If you can do milk, the True Moo chocolate milk is the way to go.
Sounds good, and it tastes good too. So Steve's asking, I've been watching some of CT's Fletcher stuff about constantly breaking down the muscle. He parallels it to basic training and not really needing a lot of rest. What are your thoughts on that, or should I be using periodization cycles like 3 to 1 week ratio. I think what he's asking is, um, well, okay, so I kind of know the basic idea of C.T. Fletcher. He's basically saying that people overly worry about overtraining. Is that correct, Steve? And that ultimately, um, yes. Okay. So okay, he's actually correct. And my training cycles actually sort of mirror this. I try to work out every day. You this has actually been a recent thing. My workouts are a little different though than they used to be, and so it's almost as if there's rest because I'm not really doing extreme amounts of activity. Like for instance, I'm not wadding 7 days a week, right? I have some heavy days, I have some long endurance days, I have some muscle building days, and I have some WOD days, and so that kind of makes the whole 7. So I am a big believer in CT Fletcher. And there's another, I can't think of the guy's name. Do you know who I'm talking about? He's like he's like the beer drinking guy from Australia. Gosh, what's his name right now? But he wrote a book on squatting every day, and I'll remember it eventually, and you'll probably be gone at that point. But he wrote a book on squatting every day, and one of the things he talks about is similar to what we talk about with Eat to Perform, is that if you're going to squat every day, you're going to have to make sure that you're eating adequate amounts of food and you're allowing that muscle to repair. And so are you doing like 1-rep maxes every single day? No. You would be doing some level of speed work, 1-rep maxes, maybe split squats, maybe lunges, all these different variations of squatting, but you would in fact be squatting every day. John Brose is another person that is a big squat every day guy. Now, I was talking to Sean Waxman, who is one of the guys that trains a lot of our Olympians, and he was talking about how John Brose's system really works, but it cracks a lot of eggs. If you look at my training as an example, and you say, well, he's trying to train every single day, and in a smart approach for a 46-year-old man. I'm not trying to kill myself every single day. Look, John Brose is actually really pushing these guys. It's a very Bulgarian style of training. It's probably similar to what C.T. Fletcher is actually talking about. In terms of periodization cycles, 3 to 1, I'm okay with that. It just sort of depends on how smart you are. Let me just finish this part about what you're asking, and then just tell you how I do my training. Okay, my first day of the week, I do heavy. So I do heavy deadlifts, heavy squats, and then I do a 6 to 8 minute Tabata. And when I say Tabata, what I mean is all-out Tabata. It's not like a lot of the Tabatas. Like I see Tabatas with sit-ups. I see Tabatas with like hang cleans. That's not a real Tabata, because you have to, the way you do a Tabata is you have to do exercises that allow you to sort of get past your comfort zone. A hang clean, once you get to that tired point, you're just not going to hang clean. So you've defeated the purpose of the Tabata, right? And so so that's my first day. It's kind of weird because a lot of people wouldn't think that you could do Tabatas on the same day you're doing heavy, but they work similar energy systems. So Monday, as an example, I'll do like a recovery run, which is about 3 miles, and it's usually, I'm not trying to kill myself. If I feel like walking, I will. It's really more about just trying to kind of get moving, bringing some cardio into the equation. On Tuesday, I'll probably do some upper body type bodybuilding movements, or a WOD if it fits my training style. Wednesday, I'm going to be doing some level of squatting, That's more of kind of like bodybuilding style. Thursday's probably a WOD. Friday is a long run, and then Saturday would be sort of my choice. If I see a WOD I like, great. If I don't like the WOD, I might do bodybuilding. I might make up my own WOD. So, and all of this is somewhat flexible. If a WOD fits my training, I'll do it on that day. Like if I like it and it sort of sets up well for me. So I don't know if that helps you, but I think it's also important to know like how old you are, Steve, because if you're 22, 3-to-1 is probably perfect for you. And you could probably do a lot of the things that our CT Fletcher's talking about. But if you're 52, okay, you're 42. At 42, you're probably looking at what I'm looking at. Trying to slowly increase work capacity. When I say long endurance, what I mean is 7 to 10 miles. So Fridays or Saturdays would be 7 to 10 miles. Usually, I'm going to try and do the 7 to 10 miles on Fridays because I'm going heavy on Sundays. So I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, you have a follow-up, let me know. Mike also had a follow-up. Why do you do a lot of carbs for dinner versus at lunch when you're more active? Why do you do a lot of carbs for dinner versus at lunch when you're more active? Well, I'm just curious, are you saying that you're more active around your lunch? Like, for instance, are you working out at lunch? I think what he's probably saying, though, is that you're more active because you're awake. The only instance where you would be doing more carbs around dinner would be if you're working out around dinner, or as an example, if you're working out early in the morning. So I'm not sure I completely understand what you're saying or the advice that you've got. Maybe you got that from somebody in the forum, and so once I have more specifics, maybe I can answer that a little bit more intelligently. Do you think you know what he's talking about, April?
Probably, because we usually suggest to load 50 to 75 grams of carbs pre-post workout if it's earlier in the day, and then basically have a good majority of the carbs that you have remaining with dinner and possibly before bed. And I actually do the same thing. It helps me with the recovery and it helps me sleep.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I mean, it's just, your biggest meal typically is going to be dinner, and then if you have some level of dessert before bed, there's your carbs. So if you work out at 6 p.m., it works out great. If you work out at 7 a.m., it works out great. So I guess that would be one way to answer it. If you're working out at 7 a.m. or 6 p.m., why would you want to have your carbohydrates at noon, right? Because essentially what you're trying to do is give a signal to your body that, hey, it's time to use carbohydrates for energy. He's saying I work out early morning and then work throughout the day. Then at night I'm usually sitting around. Well, that's good that you're sitting around because you don't want to be using up that glucose until the morning anyway, right? I think you're sort of getting a little focused on trying to, you would definitely want to have carbohydrates the night before. You obviously don't need pre-workout carbohydrates as long as that's comfortable for you. And then you would have carbohydrates with your breakfast. For lunch, you're basically having proteins, fats, and fibrous vegetables because you're trying to keep insulin low and you want to use the rest of that day for fat burning purposes. So if you eat at 7 p.m. as an example, from let's say you had breakfast at 8 o'clock, you want your body to kind of use up those carbohydrates, maybe keep your carbohydrates and insulin low the majority of the day, so you've got 12 hours of fat burning right there. Not to mention, you're probably going to be burning a good amount of fat even when you sleep, even though you had carbohydrates. So is that helpful? or is there some part of that that's unclear? You don't have to completely avoid carbohydrates at lunch. In fact, I often talk about the fact that I have 30 to 50, somewhat as a managing technique, but somewhat digestively. It just, for me, if I go zero carbs for lunch, it's just not comfortable for me. But
And I do the exact same thing.
yeah, I mean, once you sort of get into your groove, and your groove, might be different than our groove. I know for both April and I, we work out well, I don't know, do you work out in the morning?
Yeah, I do late morning.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Um, and so yeah, there you go. But see, even though you do late morning, you do the carbs the night before, right?
I still do the carbs the night before, and I still have a pre-workout meal, but I usually delay my breakfast till about 9:30, 10, something like that. And my breakfast is actually my pre-workout meal.
Gotcha. So let's say he saying it makes sense just to have to unlearn the rule of no carbs at night. Well, okay, so now let see there you go. That's the real question. The no carbs at night. One of the reasons why April and I have carbs at night is because it knocks you out. you know, I mean, we sleep 9 hours a night, and one of the reasons why we sleep 9 hours a night is because of carbs. The basic myth behind um, no carbs at night is that when you don't have carbs, you don't have insulin. It's the same thing we're telling you around noon, right? But in the case of the nighttime, we want you to have quick loading carbohydrates so we can kind of get that insulin in and out relatively quickly. And so what we can do at that point is you get tired from carbohydrates, you sleep better, you get deeper, more restorative sleep, and therefore you get leaner as a result. And I think once you start doing it, you're going to find that your sleep is a lot better, and that will be the ding 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 moment for you. I know for myself, I kind of followed that no carbs at night thing, and I would wake up in the middle of the night and all these different things, and sometimes I would be hungry. And then once I was like, well, this isn't working. I'm not sleeping well. Once I switched that up, it made all the difference in the world. Even using something like melatonin as an example, as a sleep aid, I would still wake up, and once I added the carbs, it's like deep drooling sleep. I mean, it's just amazingly different. So try it out, see what feels right. I mean, one of the things that I would be open to is if it doesn't feel right for you, then I mean, maybe that's not your prescription, but the point of what we're trying to teach you guys is some level of trial and error to see what feels the most right and gets you the best results. So definitely use this or use the forum as a way to kind of get more feedback, and if something feels wrong, let us know. If it feels right, go, hey guys, this is amazing. I tried the carbs thing at night, unlearned all this old behavior, and it's really made a difference for me, and that's what most people tell us. So, all right, let's get moving. Beth is saying, can you comment about creatine use? I'm a 50-year-old female, been CrossFitting for 15 months, currently WODing 4 to 5 times per week with additional lifting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday before I WOD, front squats, overhead squats, back squats. I'm not trying to get to the CrossFit Games or even compete a lot, but I do want to take my body as far as it will let me. Unfortunately, I know nothing about how I might benefit from creatine. Creatine basically allows your body to convert your energy, okay? And can you explain it better than I can right now? What are your thoughts on creatine, April?
Doesn't it convert the ATP
Yeah,
process? response.
It's an ATP conduit, yes.
Exactly, and it draws water into your muscles, and it actually, like what you said, it helps you use the energy more efficiently. I know for me personally, I actually had cycled off of creatine. I would highly recommend it. Unfortunately, a lot of the industry targets creatine to men, and if you go to a regular GNC, you'll get the salesman that says, you're not a woman, don't take creatine because you'll get really, really big, which is a load of garbage. Completely garbage, but I actually cycled off in the summer just for a couple of weeks, and I forgot to start back taking it. And I actually started, as soon as I started the Hatch cycle, I started back taking it. Huge difference in recovery, soreness, huge difference since I started back taking it. So I personally...
Yeah, Beth, the way that you lift is probably similar to Hatch, where you're doing lots of volume. I mean, sort of what you're talking about with your training is sort of similar to why I went to working out every 7 days. Now, I would also like to point out that if I'm not feeling 100%, I'll just take a rest day. But most days I feel 100%. So I like working out. It is a stress reliever for me. It's just positive, positive, positive. So there's no reason I wouldn't do it. I'm not doing it. I'm like you're saying, I'm doing it to get better at exercise. And if you're working out a lot to get better at exercise, yay, we're way in favor of that. If you're working out a lot for fat loss, we are not in favor of that. We think that there's a lot better ways to get fat loss, but it sounds like that's not your big goal. And creatine will certainly help you with recovery. And it will help you with getting stronger and getting more out of your exercise. She's saying, I do need to lose 10 pounds of fat, currently 167 pounds. What is your height? She's saying 6. I don't know what she's saying. She's 5'6". There we go. So you're 5'6", 167. I mean, that's not, unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. And there's definitely a lot of 5'6", 167 people that exercise great, feel great, do great things. In terms of trying to lose 10 pounds, I got to tell you, if I was trying to lose 10 pounds, I would not be working out 7 days a week. I'd be working out probably 4 or 5 days a week. That's one of the problems. See, it's sort of like what Mike was saying. It's trying to unlearn the bad things that you've kind of heard out there, and the idea that you can't eat carbohydrates at nighttime. The other one is that working out is how you'll burn fat. I do agree that it helps create like this metabolic engine that is going to be good for you, and as long as you're eating an appropriate amount of food, you're having your creatine, you're getting better at exercise and things of that nature. If you wanted to take 10 weeks to lose 10 pounds, I'm all in favor of that. But as a general rule with Eat to Perform, we like to make sure that you're eating an adequate amount of food, and depending on what your food logs look like, how much interaction you've had with the forums. A lot of people in your situation, just to be completely honest with you, they've had 10 pounds to lose, probably have had 10 pounds to lose for a long time. They've been kind of trying the either low calorie, low carbohydrate with a lot of exercise to no avail because they're sort of stressing out their system all the time. And so so you got to pick, which one do you want more? Do you want, the fat loss, or do you want the exercise? And you say, well, I would like both. And I'd probably argue with you that you can't. It's very, very difficult to do, especially doing what you're doing, where it's, some level of low intensity actually is helpful in the routine that you're talking about. In terms of how you eat and where you're coming from an eating background, Would you say that you've been undereating or overeating or adequately eating? Can you give me some insight on that? Also, do you have any idea what your total daily energy expenditure is and body fat percentage and things of that nature? Or did you just sign up and you're like, dude, chill out. Too much info, too fast. Okay, been doing eat to form, 80 grams of fat, so 720, let's see, 160 protein, 225 carbs. Yeah, that's probably pretty low carb for the level of activity that you're having. You're saying 100 grams of carbs on workout days. You know, that having
I
a
think,
hard time
I
getting
think
all the
she
protein though
said
before I
she
hit carbs.
actually, sorry, I think she said she actually trains 4 to 5 days a week, and she does the lifting like in the same session as her WOD. So she actually
Yeah,
does it kind of before, so they're not broken up in separate sessions.
right. 100 carbs on non-workout days. So, I mean, the long story short is that, I mean, one thought that if you would have asked me this 3 months ago, um, I mean, first of all, I think your carbs are a little too low for workout days. Let's see, your fats are at 80. That's probably okay. Um, if you were to ask me where you would, what I would do, I would up your carbohydrates and I would lower your fats. That would be the first place I would go. What are your thoughts, April? I mean, are you feeling me? I mean, there's a lot of activity here for 225 grams of carbs.
Yeah, no, I'm always for more carbs, but it could have possibly been the recommendation could have possibly been because of her prior background, which more than
Hmm.
likely it probably was. Um,
Okay, so here's a thought that I'm having, and you go ahead and just hit me with this, but um, if you were working with me, one suggestion that I would have for you is to take 90 of your calories and turn those into carbohydrates. And I'm basing that off of your 10 grams of fat. And so we would lower your fats um, to kind of get to a little bit of a deficit. So we would take 10. Um,
so you would lower
what's
fats to 7. You would lower fats to 70, and you would
well,
increase.
actually, we're going to lower fats lower than that, but go ahead and I would
Well,
lower fats to 70.
you would increase her carbs up to 247.
That is correct. But I would almost like to see the carbs actually closer to maybe 300. But we can start there. Then for the deficit, I would like to see your fats go down to 50. You the other thing I would like to see is one of those training days actually end up being a um, a longer endurance day, or maybe not super long, but at least like 3 miles. Um, where we're kind of doing this without a crazy amount of stress, because right now you're wadding a lot. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, I know sometimes the fat recommendation. Not a fan of running, but I'll try. You could also do rowing. You could also do airdyne. But like rowing, as an example, you're going to want to do um, roughly 5K of rowing, um, or maybe like a do like 500 calorie row, not 500 calories, but 500 meter row, and then maybe 5 minutes of airdyne, and then just do circuits for essentially what would take you that time to run a 5K. So if you run a 5K in 30 minutes, just do that, kind of keeping your heart rate low, right around the 140 to 150, but you don't have to be overly worried about that. Does that make sense, Beth? One of the things that's really of super value with keeping and also you can go to 80%. on your protein. I don't have any problem with that. So that can actually be a little bit lower. So I think that's probably what 140, 145, something of that nature. Um, any thoughts on what I'm saying? I will tell you this: you're gonna have to be really lean on the meats because it's kind of hard to stay that low on fats. Um, but that should really help you sort of get to what we're trying to get you to is about a 500 calorie a day deficit, right? So that'll get you to 3,500 for the week, and then 10 weeks later, you're down 10 pounds. One thing I would suggest to you, though, is if you find that you're struggling 5 to 6 weeks in, talk to April or I, because there's something going wrong. There's something missing. What are your thoughts, April? Because that's actually been a tool that I've been using with people a little bit more that are willing to eat relatively lean. And what I found is when you kind of keep that fiber pretty low and you sort of keep that fat pretty low, a lot of people are adding a lot of muscle while doing this. And so it's sort of interesting.
I agree. I think my personal opinion has always been, because I keep my fats at a very moderate level. You will rarely ever see my fats super high. I just don't work well with fats. I will say this. I actually, after the 10 weeks, after you've lost the 10 pounds, I definitely want to see you gradually adding back in that fat, because what we're trying to do is make a very specific recommendation for a very specific time frame. And so, just judging from what you're saying, we're trying to move your macros around if you're stable at that level, and we're trying to just keep your energy levels up. That's the concern with me with this recommendation, is that your carbohydrates actually just aren't high enough for your level of activity, and that would be the big concern I would have. And so if you start to sort of run low on energy, we may want to up those carbohydrates. But definitely try and get some longer endurance in either once or twice a week, and I think that will help you, because realistically, you might only burn 200 calories in a WOD, 250. We're not working out for a whole hour. It's got its advantages. It's definitely part of my routine, but it's not the only thing in terms of getting better as an athlete, but also seeing real results. And so this is something, we're giving you a very specific recommendation. We need you to give us feedback. Otherwise, I don't want you saying, oh gosh, Paul gave me this feedback, I felt like crap, and well, what'd you do? Well, I don't know what I did. I just went back to eating the way I normally did. No, that's not what we're telling you to do. What we need you to do is give us feedback. I think she is saying right now that I will talk to April tomorrow, make sure I have all the numbers right. Cool. You've got everything down, April, right? Yes.
I think another part is getting that protein down to 0.8, because that gives a little bit more of a deficit. She's still going to be getting adequate recovery. It's not that big of a deal to go a little bit lower there. Okay, so let's see. Chris is saying, how long before your workout should you have your carbohydrates? That's a simple answer. Typically about 2 hours if you're eating whole foods. If you're drinking your carbohydrates, you can have them pretty close to your WOD. Usually I'll have mine about 30 minutes before if I'm having Vitargo or something like that. But if I'm having rice, sweet potatoes, something of that nature, 2 to 3 hours before is probably what feels about the most right. Can you think of any one-offs there, April?
Yeah, I think everybody's different. Just see which foods, some people don't do well with liquids on their stomach prior to wadding, within a certain time period out, because they may puke.
That's true, yeah.
Generally with liquids, normally, 30, 45 minutes out, and whole foods, a couple hours out, hour and a half, 2 hours out is usually an ideal time.
Right. Steve was saying this is actually, oh, Steve, you're going to get me in trouble. He said carbs like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Yeah.
If you're new to Eat to Reform.
They work. Yes.
If you're new,
I'll answer for you, and that way you won't get in trouble. Yes, if you have no
well, no,
issues with.
you are going to get me in trouble because these people are new, right? So they're going, oh my God, these people told me to eat cinnamon toast crunch, and that freaks a lot of people out. But the reality is something like cinnamon toast crunch is a fast absorbing carbohydrate, and so it's hilarious that you asked that specific question because I typically eat cinnamon toast crunch before bed, and honestly, you'll wake up with all the energy in the world and you'll sleep with deep sleep. Am I suggesting that, there's a lot of people that go, you know what, from a health perspective, I'm just not into cinnamon toast crunch. I could make a really strong argument that it is completely healthy, but if that's not the way you choose to eat, we're not recommending that you should use cinnamon toast crunch. If you're a vegetarian, we don't say to you, you have to eat meat. Okay, we're just trying to get you what we think is going to be the best case scenario for you. So for instance, if you're paleo, maybe dates in that situation is going to be a better fit. But I'm telling you right now, I eat cinnamon toast crunch before bed, probably 3 nights a week. And those 3 nights a week, I sleep deep, and one of the biggest reasons why I added that, especially when I started adding in more volume as it relates to my training, is because I cannot get in enough carbohydrates unless I have some fast-loading carbohydrates. And the nice thing about having fast-loading carbohydrates is it gets insulin out, it gets insulin in and out quickly, so you can kind of get back more to that fat-burning mode quicker, if that makes sense. So Steve, yeah, you just got me in trouble with everybody who's like, oh my God, he's against clean eating. I'm okay with clean eating as long as your clean eating is specific. I'm actually writing. Steve's saying it works for him. I agree, it works for me too. I have it with coconut milk, light coconut milk. Once again, not suggesting that for everyone, and for people with a lot of fat to lose, maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense to have fast-loading carbohydrates before bed for you either. It really comes down to can you reach your macros without having to go there. And for a lot of people, you have to add in some energy-dense sources. The way that I used to say it is pretty simple. What used to get you fat now gets you jacked, right, when you work out. When you weren't working out, I'm not going to suggest Cinnamon Toast Crunch. But when you're working out at 7 a.m., Cinnamon Toast Crunch will help you, or if you worked out at 6 p.m. So Jackie's probably going, oh my God, this guy's nuts here. So Jackie is someone that I met this weekend at the conference, and she has a question. Can you elaborate on fat loss and performance? How does a CrossFit athlete who wants to compete that needs to lose fat tackle this? My goal is to lose fat to become better at bodyweight movements. You take a cycle of low-intensity training for roughly 8 weeks and back off of training until you reach your fat loss goals, and then go back to regular CrossFit competitors programming. Okay, I have CrossFit Games athletes, and basically the formula that I just gave to Beth is the formula that I give to many of them. I'm not afraid to go even lower than that as the person is tapering off, trying to reach their ultimate goals. And so what I would say is, for you, Jackie, and kind of knowing your situation a little bit from talking to you this weekend, I honestly think that, certainly weight is going to be an issue here. And certainly we need to get you to a deficit. But my guess is that fats are actually the predominant fuel source for you. But I don't want to speak about that. Can you give me some basic ideas? Do you feel? What are your macros? Do you know what your macros are? She says she tries to say under 75, 250 grams of carbs, and then 150 grams of protein. Can you give me the calories on that, April?
Mm-hmm.
She says she shoots for 2,500, which I think is
4, 6.
Well, we're totally killing.
It
If this
actually
was
comes out. That actually comes out to 2275.
okay, 2275. So essentially, Jackie, one thing that I would like to see you try would be to go to 50 grams of fats, 300 grams of carbohydrates, and roughly 125 grams of protein. And then, much the same way I said with Beth, well, you said that you're doing CrossFit training. I do have people that are doing CrossFit training, so what I'd like you to do is continue with the training that you're doing right now, and then just make sure that your carbohydrates are higher. And I think that, can you do the math for me real quick, April?
Mm-hmm.
She says she's been incorporating slow, low-intensity jog walks to create even more of a deficit. That's okay. It could create more stress for your system, so that you might actually be better off doing the rest. So let's see, we're saying 125 grams of protein, that's 500 calories right there. We're saying 300, that's 1,200, 1,700, and then 50 is 2,050. What now?
That would be.
I've got 2,050 with the macros. What now?
2150.
Okay, it's 2,150.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that that's what you should try first. Stick with the jogging and the extra. I would actually do it walking. Don't jog. Just try and get 45 minutes of walking, and I think that's going to be the best thing. This is the thing that I caution some of my athletes with, and I think it's really important, is you're up against it. You're creating incredible stress for your body, and so yes, if you're asking me the truth, I would rather you take 2 months off of competitive training, and then we get to that deficit. We lose 10 pounds as an example, and then we come back to the competitive training. Knowing you a little bit, you could try it this way. My suggestion to you would be, if you have 10 weeks, I might actually cut the CrossFit training, because essentially we're in November right now. Basically, that puts you 6 weeks. It's sort of tough, because you almost have to sort of stick with the plan that you have right now and see if you can kind of make it work. But if you can't, what I see happen for a lot of people is they would like to get to 10, but maybe they get 5 because they've got so much stress because of the workouts that they're doing. And so yeah, to close it open, so this summer maybe do that. Yeah, see, here's what I think. Let's try this approach right now, okay? Hopefully we can get you down 5 pounds and show you that this works, right? And I think that should be pretty easy to do, especially if you're in communication with April and myself. Once we get to that 5 pounds, then I want to know how you feel, and I want to know if we should continue. Hopefully we've gotten to that 5 pounds by January 1st. 5 pounds, in this instance, it may make a huge difference for you, possibly placing you into a regional or something of that nature, or if you're competitive, on a team or something of that nature, you'll be more competitive on a team. So be in touch with April and I. Uh, I think you'll be fine. I have athletes that are working with these types of macros right now, seeing great success, but they're not doing it forever. So what we want to do is kind of try 5 or 6 weeks. Let's lose 5 or 6 pounds. January 1st, we probably want to start ramping up the calories. Start training more intensely, things of this nature. And some of the things that you should expect is that 2-3 weeks in, you're not going to feel as strong as you normally do. Maybe a little lethargic. So there's some negatives to this. You have to expect it. You have to know it going in. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Especially not in this instance. And so, ideally, what I would like you to do is get down 5 to 6 pounds. We'll reevaluate to see if it makes some sense. But kind of going into the open, I mean, from January to February, we only have 1 month. That's just not enough. And so the January and February will give you the opportunity to ramp your training up, ramp your food up, and then make a good run at the open. So that's my suggestion to you. And she's saying, yes, that makes sense. Okay, sounds good. 50 grams of fat, 300 grams of carbs, 125 grams of protein every day, even on off days. How many off days do you have? One to two. Okay. I think what I'd like to see you do on those 1 to 2 days is 2 if I'm not feeling good. I would like to see you kind of do that slower, longer hikes and things of that nature on those 1 to 2 days. I think that'll really help you, and it'll help your recovery. So that's an important part of this. 4 weeks in, talk to me, because we might have to add kind of a treat meal evening type of thing, and so we'll kind of deal with that once that comes into play. So let me get to other questions here. Let's see. She's saying thank you so much, April. So hopefully she's able. I'm hoping that Jackie, you're in the forums and can be in touch with April as well. So I'm getting ready for powerlifting meet. I'm currently at 2 days of rest, 5 days a week workouts with 2 days twice a week. Should I increase my carbs on those days? And what about cutting carbs on rest days? Female, 39 years old, 165, 2698 total daily energy expenditure. Thanks, Raquel. Yes, you want your carbohydrates to be roughly to the level of your total daily energy expenditure. You can get a little bit aggressive on your rest days. There's only 2 of them, so your calories are going to be closer to 2,200. Actually, yeah, we want to take out at least 500 calories, mostly from carbohydrates. So your carbohydrates are going to go down 125 grams on your rest days. Now, let me caution you. Sometimes when you're doing 2 days, 2698 is actually 3,000 because that's a lot of working out. So if you start to feel really run down, I would start upping your carbohydrates on your rest days, because if your carbohydrates are too low and then the next day you're working out with a 2 days as an example, it's not going to be favorable. One thing I would suggest for you is on your low carbohydrate days, save the good majority of your carbohydrates for the evening so you can kind of ramp up for the next day, if that makes sense. Do you have any thoughts on that, April, or any suggestions?
I'm curious to know, she's getting ready for a competition, if she's actually already at in her weight class, or if that's nothing that we need to be concerned about, or
That's what I was going to ask you.
anything like that. Because my initial thought is if she's doing 2 days a week, I would aim for, basically probably, depending upon her height, maybe 300 grams of carbs or more on those double days. And then take, more of a, the total daily energy expenditure on the single days, and then drop them down a little bit on her rest days.
Right.
But if she's kind of cutting it close as to making weight now, or she knows she's going to have to do water manipulation now, depending upon her prior background, if it was lower calorie or lower carb, she may not want to jump head first in, because she may experience some weight gain and in turn, not make her weight class.
Yeah. You definitely want to be keeping an eye on the scale. She's saying that she is she's comfortable at the weight class that she's in, or she's at the weight that she needs to be at, so that's not a huge issue. Definitely, we don't want to kick you up into the next weight class. Though actually, I'm not overly, I know probably a woman is probably more inclined to want to stay in the same weight class, but for most people in weightlifting competitions, especially people trying to lose an aggressive amount of weight really quickly, I usually say, unless you're going for a world record or American record or something of that nature, you're probably just better off staying where you're at. You'll feel more comfortable, strong, things of that nature, and you'll have more fun at the meet. And so that's what I think. But once again, we're starting to get a little late. It's past 8 o'clock. We try to end this at 8 o'clock. It's not a huge deal. But does that help, Raquel? Is that going to be a good formula for you? Because I think, honestly, I do like, it's funny because I think for fat loss, we're not a huge fan of 2 days and things of that nature. But when you're trying to get better and you're trying to get stronger, it does make a lot of sense, as long as you're adequately feeding yourself and things of that nature. And so it sounds like if your total daily energy expenditure is right at 2,700, you're well on your way there. So let's see. Okay, so Pamela asked, let's see, can you restate the percentage macros you just recommended? There is no percentage macros that I just recommended. So they were specific to someone's situation. I don't recommend like specific ratios. It just depends on what a person's goals are. So let's see, never mind, it was from a while ago, no problem. What percentage reduction in carbs should we have on non-exercise days? Well, once again, we don't go on percentage, but as a general rule, we're trying to get you to about 500 calories deficit, depending on the size of you as a person. If you're a smaller person, it might be 375. If you're a bigger person, maybe we could get away with 650. So it just sort of depends. But in general, if your total daily energy expenditure is 2250, you'll probably feel pretty comfortable at 1750. Most of the reduction coming from about 125 grams of carbohydrate, if that makes sense. So, I would kind of taper that to whatever your situation is. We have a lot of questions, some of which I answered. Let's see. Idelia. Is there a cutoff on eating before bed? For example, should I stop eating 1 or 2 hours prior to bedtime if I work out at 5 a.m.? That's a comfort thing. I have to tell you that for me, I can eat 15 minutes before bed and actually I sleep more comfortably as a result. So here's the defining thing for you. Does it make me feel better or does it make me feel worse? That's all you need to worry about. There is no magic cutoff time, though. So I hope that's helpful. But yeah, so I hope that makes sense, Adelia. Let's see, Alexandra, I recently started adding more carbs into my diet. Was following paleo. Was suggested I eat oatmeal before workouts instead of for breakfast. How long before my Olympic weightlifting session should I have that for optimum absorption? I have also added oatmeal. one of the reasons why I like oatmeal, and this is a suggestion I will make to most of you guys that are adding oatmeal, is add protein to it. You know, I can add up to 2 scoops of protein, gets me up to 50 grams more protein, so it makes my protein much more manageable. In fact, tonight I'm probably going to have oatmeal before bed instead of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch, because I need some protein. And so some carbs, some protein before bed.
Have you ever, hey, just a thought, Paul. If you take your protein powder and turn it into like chocolate milk, you can actually add that to your cereal, and it makes it taste better too as well.
Oh yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I'll try that. That's pretty good. That's a good idea. I don't typically drink like the coconut milk though. It just kind of gets it wet, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the protein is it tends to be kind of, I don't know. I just really like the oatmeal. You got me kind of hooked on oatmeal, man.
Well, I'm gonna have to send you the actual famous recipe that so many people in the forum love, the April's oatmeal recipe, because you haven't had it. You've had the actual recipe.
I'm in. You know, well, what I like about oatmeal is that you can make it so quickly. You know, I think oatmeal's got a really bad rap, man. You know, because you can put protein in it, and it's just easy to make. I'm not, you know, like I said, I probably have it 2-3 times a week, similar to how much I have the Cinnamon Toast Crunch or the other thing. Since it's already out there, you know, Fruity Pebbles or Cocoa Pebbles are also good suggestions. So those 3 are probably my go-tos. Let's see. Mike's asking, before bed, should you have fast-acting carbs or slow-acting carbs? You would want to have fast-acting carbohydrates. You want them in and out as quickly as possible, similar to the reason why you think that you shouldn't have carbohydrates at night. The reason why you want fast-acting carbohydrates is you want them in and out, you know, meaning insulin, in and out. And so the insulin does its job, it goes away, you're in fat burning mode, and you're sleeping deeply. So I hope that's helpful. I hope he's still around, actually. Let's see. Kim Christensen, wow. She of all the muscle. April's recipe is the best if you save macros to put Nutella on top. Interesting. Kim Christensen said that she's got 130 pounds of lean mass. That is just so impressive. I mean, that's like adding so much to your life. It's just unreal.
Have you seen her beastly quad she's got?
Yeah, I mean, like some of her pictures are crazy. Her progress has just been nuts, which is awesome. We actually need to get a like before and after stuff from her. You know,
I've been on hers.
She all of her updates on Facebook.
Yeah, she actually mentioned it today.
Idelia's saying, Mike said, thank you. Does oatmeal have to be cooked? Yes, it does. I know someone who simply blends the oatmeal with the protein shake, but does this take away from the oatmeal itself? It does, because you want it to be starchy. And so the starches helps. I mean, does it mean that like I never eat granola, as an example? I'll eat granola occasionally, but it's not optimal. It's not something that I would want to have as a strategy. It's just something that I might have, you know, with some yogurt, maybe a little honey or something like that at some point. I maybe have that once every 2 weeks or something, but it's something I like as well. But it's not as optimal as many of the other things that we're talking about. Okay, I think we got through everything. Let's see. 26. I'm not that beastly. I don't know. It's pretty. 126 is pretty crazy. You know. So anyway, I appreciate everybody being here. Lots of great questions, and I think the key is just to remember that these are not answers for life. You know, and sometimes if something that we suggest makes you feel a little yucky, you know, for a couple days we might say ride it out. For a couple weeks we might say something's wrong. And so communication on your part is a big part of this deal for you to see the results that you want. And that's what we're here to help you do. So Anyway, I appreciate everybody being here. April, do you want to say goodbye to everybody?
Good night, everybody. See you in the forum.
Okay. We will let you guys go and have a great week, and let's be in touch. Talk to you later.